Olá, pessoal, bem-vindos a todos. Vamos começar em mais uma aula do nosso curso de Introdução à Engenharia de Som. Hoje vamos ter a palestra do professor Jens Ahrens, colega de longo tempo.
Hello.
Fizemos doutorado junto no mesmo período na Alemanha, sempre na mesma área, então sempre trocamos muita figurinha. O Jens, fez graduação em música e engenharia, ele vai contar um pouco sobre isso, em Graz, na Áustria. Depois seguiu para o doutorado na Alemanha e depois passou um tempo na indústria, voltou para a universidade. Hoje ele é professor na Universidade de Chalmers, que fica na Suécia, em Gothenburg, no sul da Suécia. E tem trabalhado mais recentemente com a aquisição de som espacial e reprodução, pensando em reprodução e para a realidade virtual. Então, sem mais delongas, Jens, first of all, thank you very much for accepting this invitation. And we are all very excited to hear what you have to tell us. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Bruno, for the introduction and, of course, for the invitation. Thanks, everybody else, for coming. Bruno asked me to briefly summarize my career and demonstrate how I got into acoustics, because that might be obviously very relevant information for you. So I have to say my story was pretty classical in that when I was a teenager, I played electric guitar in a rock band, and I found all these dials and knobs on the guitar amplifier and on the mixing desk, and I got excited about how it works, that these dials and knobs, they changed the sound in the way they did. And then by coincidence, I found out about this study program in Graz in Austria that I completed, which is a collaboration between the University for Music and the University of Technology. And it's basically electrical engineering with a focus on audio. And when I graduated from that program, I didn't find that I had specifically pronounced skills. I had learned a lot, but I didn't feel comfortable in all the things that I was doing. So I was looking for more opportunities to learn more. And then I chose to do a PhD, and I got in the matter. And then I got into the academic environment, and I enjoyed it very much. And then I spent most of my career, which started in 2005, at different universities in different countries in Europe and the United States. But also, there's one specialty about which is pretty. So that's pretty common. There's one special thing about my career, which is that I spent also 2 years in the industry. In 2011, I joined the research department at Microsoft outside of Seattle, on the Pacific Northwest of the United States. And that, at the time, it was pretty special because this research department, it's essentially a university, but without students. So at the time, it had like 600 people, I believe. It was composed of 600 people, all with PhD degree and above. But there was no teaching, obviously, no classes, so no supervision of students. It was only research. And basically, the part that was the part of the working hours that would usually be covered with teaching in a normal university was replaced with product development work. So basically, what we did most of the times was using technologies that worked in a laboratory environment and made them work in every environment so that they are suitable for products. And because it was so academic, it was easy to return back into the academic world. So there was absolutely no hindrance. And nowadays, I have to say nowadays, it's only 10 years later, but still times have changed quite a bit. And there are actually quite a few such research locations, particularly in the West Coast, at the West Coast of the United States, which are basically part of for-profit organizations, but still are very academic in the way the work is done, so that it's easy to switch in and out of academia in that sense. All right, so I think that was more than probably was appropriate, but now...
Oh, that was perfect.
Right.
I think that's really motivating for our students.
I'm happy to hear that. All right, then I dive into the contents of my presentation. I'll quickly share the screen for that. So the title of the presentation is, Sound Recording for Virtual Reality. And when I say virtual reality, I refer to the situation that you see in that picture on the bottom right. That is basically virtual reality goggles that are usually accompanied by some sort of headphone sound reproduction. And in order to understand what is so special about this scenario, I would like to start summarizing classical sound recording techniques, particularly in the world of stereophony, and then develop them further to extend them to methods that are suitable for these kind of virtual reality applications, so that we understand what the similarities and differences are. Now, a little bit of background information, since Sweden is it's not such a small country, but the population is very small, so that you get some more information about it. We are located in Gothenburg, which is where the blue arrow points to. For orientation, this is the United Kingdom. Then here is Denmark, so we're somewhere in Northern Europe, and here's Finland, and I think this part up here might be even Russia, if I'm not mistaken. And so we're facing Denmark in the southern end of Sweden. I don't do this work all by myself. I'm part of a research group which is composed of these 3 people apart from me. Please excuse the gender balance. We are working on this. So now, as I said, I would like to start with stereophony. And when I say stereo, I mean a specific scenario. It happens many times that people use the term stereophony in a very sloppy manner, and that they refer to anything that has 2 channels. I would like to be a bit more specific and refer to this setup that you see here on the right-hand side of the slide. That is 2 loudspeakers, one at the left and one at the right, and a person located at the symmetry plane between the 2 loudspeakers and looking along that symmetry plane. That is specific. This scenario is specific in the sense that let's say the right loudspeaker, it doesn't play only into the right ear, but it also spills over into the left ear. This is typically termed acoustic crosstalk, and that is important to consider. And that's the fundamental difference between a stereo loudspeaker setup and listening through headphones. You might have noticed that when you listen to stereo music over headphones, it sounds kind of similar to when you listen to it through loudspeakers, but also different. It sounds different in the sense that the sounds, you might localize the sound sources inside your head. It might also be such that the scene that you're hearing sounds much broader, much more lateralized when you're listening through headphones compared to listening through loudspeakers. That is because this crosstalk is not apparent when listening through headphones. Now, the technologies that we will funnel towards today, they all assume headphone listening. And I will play a couple of audio examples. So it is very important for you to obtain the correct experience that you're listening to this presentation through headphones. And since streaming of multi-channel audio is a little tricky over Zoom, I will post links to, for example, YouTube clips and such and other resources into the chat of Zoom, and Bruno will be so kind to forward those to the YouTube stream, so that you can then, that we can all together experience the examples. I will then count down 3, 2, 1, and then you will all play the play button, and then I will tell you how long I will ask you to listen for a specific period. So, and then we all stop so that we don't need to wait for each other. So, stereo. So please, in the meantime, as I'm talking, get your headphones ready if you haven't done so. Now, stereo was researched around the late 1920s and early 1930s. That was kind of when the whole concept was developed. And at the time, people found out that if you take a signal, let's say some speech that you record with a microphone. So somebody talks into a microphone and then you play that same signal to both of the loudspeakers. It happens so that in this particular setup that is sketched on the right-hand side, that this person then hears a sound source in the center between those two loudspeakers. That doesn't sound too surprising because the setup is very symmetrical. So both ears receive the same signal. So that could not, that it's quite likely that somebody hears then a sound source straight ahead. Now, interestingly, what happens if you then, let's say, boost if you amplify the signal that this loudspeaker plays, then you're noticing the more you amplify, the more will you localize the sound source towards that loudspeaker that emits the stronger signal. Similarly, if you apply a time delay to that loudspeaker, that is, you have both loudspeakers play the exact same signal, but one plays the signal a little bit later, then it happens so that, let's say this one is delayed by some sort of electronic means. It happens so that you will find that the person listening to this will perceive the sound source closer to the loudspeaker that is leading, that is the loudspeaker that plays sooner. And the more the time differences between the two loudspeakers, the more will the lateralization be. And of course, at some point, the person will hear the sound source exactly at the leading loudspeaker. And this, if you analyze the scenario in a detailed fashion, then you will notice that it's actually not at all, it's not trivial at all to explain why this is the case. If you analyze the signal that arises at the ears of the listener, then it's anything but trivial to predict where exactly this person would localize the source. So parts of this can be explained. Other parts cannot be explained, even nowadays cannot be explained. So there's still some mysteries to be resolved. Now, here's a quick chart to demonstrate that level and time difference. Unfortunately, I cannot play it to you because of the streaming, the technical difficulties with the streaming. Please find a way yourself to experience this in an appropriate manner. You will need, of course, loudspeakers for this. So here, this left chart shows if you apply a level difference between the loudspeakers, so you make one a little louder. At this point, one loudspeaker plays only 70% of the signal that the other loudspeaker plays, and then you will find that a person listening to this in a stereo setup will localize the source 25% of the way towards the louder loudspeaker. And at this point, the level of that quieter loudspeaker would be 50% of the other loudspeaker, and that would make a person localize the sound source 50% towards the loudspeaker and so forth. And here's the same with timing differences. So, a level difference of 12 decibels corresponds to a factor of 4 of a difference between the two, so to get an idea of the ballpark. And on the right-hand side, if you don't apply any level difference, but only timing differences, then it's about a 1 millisecond timing difference that a person would localize the sound source fully lateralized. This is a very classical concept and exploited even nowadays, or applied even nowadays in many situations in audio production. So usually, so you could compose a virtual scene using these concepts. So you could, let's say, record the singing voice of a music ensemble. And if you would like the singing voice to appear in the center of the mix, then you would make those two loudspeakers, the two stereo loudspeakers, replay that voice with the exact same level. If you would like the guitar to be localized further to the right, then you would just make it a little bit louder in this loudspeaker compared to the other loudspeaker. And that is actually how, or in a slightly simplified way, that is how pop music is being created and produced. And on different mixing consoles, it can have different sizes. The one that you see here is rather small, but still, if you take a close look, each of the channels of the mixing console will have a dial that is labeled pan, and that stands for panorama. And panorama, that's kind of the sound engineering term for this lateral angle. And with this dial, you modify the level difference between the two output channels. So that's the classical thing. So it's very straightforward to compose to produce virtual sound scenes from individual sound sources. Now, if you want to record a scene and including all its spatial information, let's say a classical orchestra, you would like to understand how you have to put how many microphones and how you have to put them so that you can record a classical orchestra such that when you play it back through stereo loudspeakers, that the violins still appear on the left and the double basses on the right, etc. Then there's also ways to do this. So let's assume that this gray object that you see here is kind of a top-down view on the orchestra. This is where the conductor would be standing. And then we can place, let's say, 2 loudspeakers to the left and the right of the conductor, 2 microphones to the left and the right of the conductor. And let's assume that they are omnidirectional microphones. That means they respond with equal sensitivity, no matter from what direction the sound impinges. Let's say a violin is playing here, and the sound wave of that violin will propagate to the microphones. And since it has a longer path to the right microphone, it will arrive later at the right microphone compared to the left microphone, and maybe also a little bit quieter because it's just farther away. And similarly, if a sound source, some brass instrument, let's say, is in the middle, then all the 2 microphones will receive the signal at the exact same time. So by applying this microphone setup, we can actually enforce timing differences in the 2 output signals that are a function of the location, of the angle of where the sound is located. So if we connect these microphones directly to loudspeakers, we connect this microphone to that loudspeaker and that microphone to the other loudspeaker. And if somebody sits here and listens to that signal, then this person will hear the virtual orchestra with the violins on the left, the trumpet in the middle, and the double basses on the right. And similarly, you could also place microphones with a specific directivity. So a microphone that listens primarily towards the right-hand side and one towards the left-hand side. And that way you could enforce level differences between the output signals as a function of the position of the sound source. So we have a way of recording a sound scene, including all the information. So in the idea is the spatial information, that is where the individual sound sources are located. So, so if things go well, then the reproduced version of that scene sounds identical to the originally recorded one. That's certainly something that we would like to have. However, if you're looking at our application scenario, that is these kind of virtual reality goggles, there it can happen, or it happens frequently, that the user will turn their head as they are consuming the content. And with the scenario that we were looking at, first of all, we need loudspeakers, and the sound scene will not respond correctly to movements of the head of that person. So we need something else. So to give you a quick idea of what it would, what the full-blown story would look like, let's quickly look at a panoramic video. This is a video that was recorded with an array of cameras, so cameras that point in different directions, and then a computer program stitched the different camera images together to produce a video that we can play. And we can even, since we have filmed it in different angles, we can even look around in that video. And as you can imagine, you can watch such videos with these virtual reality goggles. So we would like to, since the sound can respond, the video can respond to the head movements, we would also like to have a means of recording the sound such that it also responds to the head movements. But there's no obvious way how to do this with stereo-like technologies. So in order to understand what would be the options, let's look a little bit into the fundamental mechanisms of human hearing, because these are, we can exploit these then on our way to finding the technology that we would like to find. So let's look at the, oh, excuse me, that was the wrong button. Let's look at the left-hand plot on this slide. We're looking top down on a person, and there's a sound source active. Now, what happens when the sound...
Professor.
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt, that I'm not seeing your screen.
Excuse me, yes. Thank you for highlighting that. Somehow I seemed to accidentally have stopped the sharing. That's great that you highlighted this. Sorry. Yeah, so let's look at the left-hand plot. There's a sound source active, and we're looking top down on that person. And as the sound waves propagate, they propagate with a constant speed through space. That means if the sound source is somewhere on the side, I can actually switch off this sharing now, and so that you see my video, and then I can use gestures to highlight to support what I'm saying. So imagine the sound source is on the left-hand side. What happens is that the sound waves that the sound source emits, they arrive first at the left-hand ear, and then they have to propagate around the head in order to reach the other ear. This interval is relatively short. It is shorter than 1 millisecond. So maximum, let's say 0.6, 0.7 milliseconds, but still our human auditory system is able to detect this timing difference. And this is how it can know that the sound was coming from the left-hand side. Similarly, a sound from the front will cause no interaural time difference. And this is how our auditory system understands that something has impinged from the front. Now, if you're looking at the shape of the outer ear, then you're noticing it is anything but symmetric. This means that if a sound impinges from the front onto a person, the way it is guided into the ear canal so it will be guided into the ear canal differently compared to a sound that impinges, let's say, from the top, because it will be affected differently by the outer ear. And this causes the signal that arrives at the eardrum to that certain frequency, that the signal will be amplified or attenuated at certain frequencies. Let me share again, then we have some more illustrations here. So depending on the angle of incidence, the signal at the ear will be amplified or attenuated at different frequencies, and our auditory system can also detect this. And this is actually how this is one way how we can differentiate different elevations. That's one way how we can hear whether some sound impinged from the top or from the front or from the bottom. Now, the question is, okay, how does this help in defining a sound recording method that is compatible with the virtual reality applications that we're looking at? So what we could do is, well, we could simply impose these acoustic cues, the timing differences and the spectral differences, onto the signals that we send, that we play to a person, for example, through headphones. So if we would like the person to hear a source, let's say on the left-hand side, slightly elevated, then we take all these acoustic cues, the timing differences and the spectral differences, and electronically impose those on the signals that we then play to the person with headphones. And then this person will hear the sound source in that particular position, without any specific hardware that needs to be used for this. So we could do this by, for example, using such a dummy head that is a replica of a human person, and it has microphones at the locations where humans have ears, so that if you record a sound scene with such a device, then the microphone signals, they will contain the exact same acoustic cues that the signals at the ears would contain in natural hearing. And if you then listen to these signals with headphones, then you'll get, and ideally if you close your eyes, then you will hear, you will get this exact same experience than if you were listening to the original scenario. So that sounds quite spectacular, and it actually is spectacular. So it's getting time for the first audio example. I'll quickly share this link with you in the chat. I just need to copy and paste it. So please get your browsers ready and also your headphones. I will count down from 3, and then we will all watch it together. And let's watch it, as the slide says, let's watch it until 1 minute 30. So it's exactly 1 minute of duration that I would like to ask you to listen to it. It's the so-called virtual barbershop. That's one of the very classical examples of such a dummy head recording. So essentially that you will hear two actors that walk around such a dummy head, and they then they pull around, essentially. So if everybody's getting ready, then we hit the play button in 3, 2, 1, go. All right, 1 minute is over, so please pause. Of course, you're free to revisit this example after the presentation, but I would like to use the time that we have together for some more explanations. So now this is an example how we could record a scene. And it's compatible with our application. However, the limitation is that the orientation of the listener during the recording is basically encoded in the signals. So if you listen to these signals on headphones and you turn your head, the entire scene will turn with you, and that's of course not what we would want, because we would want the audio to correspond to the video, which is basically stationary in space. But before I explain you how this can be achieved, I would like to make a quick detour and explain you how you can use the same so-called binaural audio technology to also create virtual scenes. So the scenes that are not recorded as they were, but that are composed from individual recordings. And in order to do that, you would need to know what all these acoustic cues are that the ear signals of humans have for sound sources at different locations. And in order to know this has to be measured. So a person has to be equipped with microphones, with small microphones in their ears. Sorry, this is the wrong color. Let me quickly change this to green. So this person, you can hardly see it from the image, but this person has very small ears that were put into her ears. And then if the person is being sat on a chair in an anechoic chamber, and there are many, many loudspeakers around this person. And then all these loudspeakers, one after the other, they play a measurement signal that is picked up by the microphones. And from comparing the signals that the loudspeakers were playing with the signals that the microphones recorded, you can deduce what these acoustic cues are, these acoustic differences that occur in the signals. And then once you know what these acoustic cues are, you can take whatever signal, me talking into a microphone, and apply all these acoustic cues onto those signals and play them through headphones. And then you will hear my voice in that particular position that you chose. And the cool thing with this is that you can add a head tracker to the reproduction. That is, you mount a sensor to the headphones that measures the instantaneous orientation of the listener, and then you can simply respond to this. So I can quickly stop sharing. So that means if you would like to the person to hear a sound source in front, you would pick the according measurement location, and if the person turns their head, you would simply need to put another another according measurement location from your data set that corresponds to that particular location where you would relative orientation, relative angle to the head, where you would like the sound source to appear. That is very effective. And this is the standard method in, let's say, game audio, for example, where if you author a scene, you would assign, let's say, a sound source to that robot and some other objects. They would be assigned other sound sources. And you have those signals of those sound sources, the input signals separately. And then you just, upon playback, once you know the instantaneous head orientation of the listener, you would simply just need to apply the according filters that you measured beforehand. So now we're halfway there. We know how we can apply, how we can respond to the head orientations, and we know how we can record content with a dummy head so that it can be played back over headphones. Now we have to put this together, and this is where this is what the spectacular aspect is. Now, in order to enable recording of entire sound scenes, including all the spatial information and the according so-called binaural, this headphone-based playback, you need to record the sound scene not with a dummy head, but with a so-called spherical microphone array. These are basically combinations of microphones. This one is a small one. This is composed of 4 microphones, this one of 32, and this one is composed of 64 microphones, and they sample the sound field, and then mathematical operations can be applied so that you basically obtain an acoustic fingerprint of the sound field that was captured, including all the spatial information, that is from which direction a sound wave, a particular component of that sound field impinged. And then we can combine this with these acoustic measurements of the ear responses of different of the people that are the exact same that we used here, that we acquired here for the binaural reproduction. And then, so there are some mathematical operations we can apply so that basically we can take the acoustic fingerprint of that sound field from that microphone array, and from these measurements of the ear responses, we know how the human ear responds to sound physically. We can combine them and virtually put the listener into the sound field that the microphone array captured. So basically, we can literally compute the signals that would arise at the ears of that person if he or she would have listened to the original sound field that was captured by the microphone array. And then we can rotate the microphone array measurement relative to the measurement of the ear responses. And we can do this in real time, responding to head movements, and thereby enable this head tracking so that the listener can literally look around in that scene. That sounds pretty magical, and it actually is magical. Let me quickly indicate to you how this is done. Unfortunately, what you have to do is you have to take this equation, then that equation, that one, and some more equations. So many people say that good teachers, they are able to explain complicated things in simple words. I have to say, if this is the criterion, then I'm not a good teacher. Unfortunately, the mathematics behind these concepts, they are very, very complicated and beyond what we can cover in the lecture today. But what I would like you to understand is that these microphones, so what the mathematics behind this do is they explicitly exploit the physical relation between the signals that the microphones capture at different locations. So we have in this example 32 microphones that record the sound field at 32 different positions, and by using knowledge of the underlying physics, how acoustic sound fields behave around these microphone arrays, we can obtain that acoustic fingerprint of the captured sound field, and then we can virtually put our listener into this. From a practical perspective, the following things are the most important ones. In theory, you would need to you need a continuous layer of microphones on that spherical body that you see here. So in theory, you would need an infinite number of infinitesimally small microphones for this to be physically perfectly accurate, and then it would be literally perfectly accurate. You could predict exactly the ear signals that that would evolve at this if this person, the listener, would be exposed to the original sound field. In practice, you can only use a limited number. It has been shown that somewhere between 30 microphones and 100 microphones is where things work really, really well. The fewer microphones you have, the lower is the physical accuracy. But it turned out that you don't have to be physically really accurate for this to sound like the original sound scene. The microphones are commercially available, and they reach from tennis ball size with 32 microphones to approximately bowling ball size with 64 microphones. There are a couple more variants of this, but this is typically kind of the ballpark where it lies. So after all this magic, it's time to experience it. So let's listen to the next examples. Please get ready. I'll share the URL in the chat. Now I'm getting confused with all the windows I have open. Excuse me. So this is now an example that we recorded ourselves. Here it's coming. And again, I will ask you to listen for exactly 1 minute, and I count down when we're ready to start. So everybody, 3, 2, 1, go. So 1 minute is over. Please store the URL if you would like to hear more. Let's quickly move on to the next example, which I will also share in the chat. Now, as you can understand, the challenge that we're facing right now in this presentation is that we cannot make you experience head tracking, because for that you would need to have some sort of tracking device attached to the headphones that measures your head movements. We don't have that. There are commercial products available for this, and even consumer products. So Apple AirPods, I think is what they are called, these earbuds. They actually have a head tracking system installed. They have been available just since recently. And as you can, we can expect that there will be more available. But this new example that I posted in the chat right now, that kind of gives you an idea of what it would sound like with head tracking, because that is audio and panoramic video together. And when you drag, and if you listen to this and drag and drop and drag the screen with a mouse, you can actually change the orientation inside that panoramic video. And you will notice that the audio also rotates along with the head movements that you're mimicking. So this is kind of as close as it gets to head tracking in the present situation. So please take a listen to this. Also, let's do just one minute so that you're getting the idea and can follow. And then we can wrap up the presentation very soon, and then you can spend as much time as you would like listening to this. Okay, so 1 minute. Starting in 3, 2, 1, go. All right, please pause the examples for a quick wrap up of today's presentation. So, yeah, sorry, I totally forgot that. I had, the question is now, of course, before we're wrapping up, maybe a look into the future. What is next? And what may be coming next? There's actually some very recent results that that we are able to present to you today that we have achieved in our research group. So the point we started with was a spherical array like the one that you see here with many microphones. In this particular example, it's 110 microphones. And this microphone array is, of course, not only capable of recording sound that is somewhere in the horizontal plane, but it can also record sound from above and below. But we found that, well, this is not happening so much that you would like to record the elevation of a sound source. So we were looking at ways to limit the recording capabilities to the horizontal plane and thereby saving on microphones. And we achieved indeed what we termed the equatorial microphone array, EMA. And in this particular case, it achieves, so that's the spherical body that has microphones only positioned along the equator of that sphere. And those two microphones, this one has 110, those microphone arrays, this one has 110, and this one has only 17 microphones. They have the exact spatial resolution, in the exact same spatial resolution in the horizontal plane. So if a sound source is a horizontal plane, those two microphones, they are exactly as good. So that is obviously a very strong reduction of the hardware costs. And then this was kind of a couple of months ago, and that we achieved this. And then we were surfing this wave, and we thought, okay, how about if the object on which we might mount the microphone array is not spherical, but let's say shaped like a human head? So if we mount microphones around, let's say, a pair of augmented reality goggles, this is also, it turned out that this works. So we presented a solution for this too. So for both the equatorial microphone array and the head-mounted array, we submitted manuscripts to scientific publication venues. They have not been published yet. They're still under review, but they will be available soon. And we did this not all by ourselves, but we found a very potent partner for this, Facebook Reality Labs Research, which is essentially the virtual reality department of Facebook. And it's a very large department. The latest figures I heard is that they have 20,000 employees or so, or more. And it's essentially the successor of the company Oculus, the manufacturer of these virtual reality goggles. They were acquired by Facebook in 2014, I believe. And then they were reorganized and rebranded to be Facebook Reality Labs. So of course, there are no concrete plans yet of commercializing this, but at least Facebook, they would have the means to do this. So with a little bit of luck, we will be able at some point in the future to record our own audio scenes with a head-mounted microphone array and also a head-mounted video array, so that we would be able to record sound and audio together. So I may summarize. Spherical microphone arrays, they allow for creating the audio equivalent of a panoramic video recording That is, where we can record a scene and then we can still look around as we play back the scene. You need many microphones for this, and this is what makes it expensive. So at the very least 32, but probably more than that. The paradigm behind these technologies is very different from conventional sound engineering in that in these solutions, the physical relation between the microphone signals is explicitly exploited in order to extract the information on the sound field. This is what makes them so complicated, but still it has proven to be robust enough to work in practice. And there's a chance that since these technologies are so relevant nowadays, there is a chance that we will see significant progress in the next few years. And this concludes my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And there are already some questions, but I just wanted to, before I forget, to let you know that Enzo de Sena was here. He is one of our next speakers. He wanted to let you know that he says hi, but he had to leave.
Hi, Enzo. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, first question that some people left at our YouTube chat was Igor was asking if there are any papers on your specific research. I guess you just answered the question in the end, but is there a repository where he could find your work?
Yes, that is that exists, and not the latest two works that I was referring to, that like the equatorial array and the head-mounted one.
Okay.
Those are still under review, but everything else can be found at the following site. Give me just 1 second.
No worries.
Suppose it's ResearchGate or?
No,
He has his own.
I have before I started a personal webpage before ResearchGate existed, and then I decided not to migrate further. So I just posted it in the chat.
Yeah, I forward that to YouTube as well.
Cool, thank you. The title of the website stems from the original topic that I was working on during my PhD, sound field synthesis. That is creating sound fields with many loudspeakers, not 2 or 5, but 200 or 500. But now I have switched to microphone arrays because they are just so much easier to store.
That was one of my questions. What happened? Why did you leave the loudspeakers behind?
That had many reasons, actually. So in a way, just for everybody else to clarify this, during the first at least 6 years of my career, I was working with these large-scale loudspeaker arrays. And at the time, there was quite a bit of excitement about what you could achieve with them. For example, in scenarios like cinemas or amusement parks, where money doesn't matter as much, it just needs to be a spectacular experience. And that can technically be achieved with these loudspeaker arrays. But after all these years of research, it turned out that maybe in the end, it's not worth the effort. So there are certainly things that you can achieve with the loudspeaker arrays, but we found that, maybe it's not so cool that you really need to put 500 loudspeakers. You can achieve very much with just 5 or so. Mm-hmm. So I was a little bit saturated in a way. It was a very exciting time, and I don't regret that I worked on this. It was very much worth the effort, even if it turned out in the end that it doesn't work as well as we thought in the beginning. That is also an important conclusion, of course. But I thought, it was, after so many years, it was time for something new.
Sure. And just to let you know, Filippo Fazzi is also saying hi. He's in YouTube.
Hi, Filippo. I'm glad that all you guys heard about this presentation. And I'm even more glad that you joined it.
Yeah.
Actually, Filippo posted a kind of question. A very nice demo with a spherical microphone array, Jens. Have you used any special methods for that? No. And if so, is there any publication on that?
So indeed, we did not. With I guess he refers to the recording where I was walking around that microphone array, right?
I believe so.
There was nothing special that we did, no special stunt. We implemented the standard methods. And we also, if you look at the description of that video, then you will find also a link to the code for that Hannes Helmholtz, one of the PhD students I work with, that he wrote, that we used to actually render the microphone array signals. So it's open source software that we created for this and that we used for this. It's all fully transparent and no stunts. We just made sure that we're not making any mistakes, basically.
What circle harmonic order are you going up there?
That was an Eigenmic recording. That's this 380 channel. That is fourth order.
Okay, yeah. Shows that you can do really good stuff with not as at that high order.
Exactly. Yeah. It seems that if you have a head-mounted array, when the body on which the microphones are mounted is not fully spherical, but a little bit more complicated, it seems that you need a little bit higher order. So it's hard to tell how much yet, but we're kind of looking into this together with Facebook Reality Labs. But that's ongoing. And
another curiosity, this research that led to Retizar, was that financed by Facebook?
Yes.
Reality Lab? And they released the code. So they are open source friendly.
Yes. So this code that Retizar, the real-time spherical array renderer, as we termed it, that Hannes wrote, that is linked in that video description, that was financed by Facebook. And in the end, they agreed to releasing it publicly.
Mm-hmm. Okay. There was some legwork in there to get it published.
Say again?
There was some talks before it was released. So they first wanted to.
No, actually no. No, not really. It was not. They were not kind of very glad about this idea that we wanted to release it, but they very soon they found that this is a good idea to basically be transparent and support the entire community, because that can also only be good for any manufacturer.
Of course, if they want to get the technology out, they want to sell the hardware, they need people to have media to listen to that. There's one comment from Rafael saying, when he listened to the barbershop, he said, well, there are other similar audios like Pink Floyd. I guess Pink Floyd was one of the pioneers on binaural audio.
Yeah, I think somewhere I read that AT&T Bell Labs, or Bell Labs as they were called at the time, they already experimented with dummy heads in the 1920s. So technically, even before stereophony was invented. Mm-hmm. So this dummy head recording concept that has been around for 100 years now. And it was very popular in the 70s. It then got forgotten in a way. It was more of a niche application, but now it's kind of coming back.
Yeah, VR is bringing it back, I guess. So Victor is asking about the limitations for this technology regarding virtual reality. What can be developed for augmented reality? Wait, I have to translate this. So what could be developed to have a decentralized augmented reality playing back sounds, real-world sounds through our smartphones? Would that be a way for the future?
I'm not sure if I
from what I understand is how can we link this technology with augmented reality and have binaural reproduction with our cell phones in an augmented reality context?
Cell phones. So for this to be augmented reality, you need some sort of acoustically transparent headphones. That kind of is possible, but not with highest fidelity, I would say. But then you can simply use this technology and play extra signals to that person. Then the user will hear their real environment plus edit whatever content it is. But playing this with a smartphone or recording this with a smartphone, we're not there yet. Particularly when it comes to recording. Of course, many people have looked into reducing the hardware effort that it takes to record content in the same manner like spherical microphone arrays. So people have been looking at compact microphone arrays with the small number of microphones, and they have achieved quite a bit in this regard. But when it comes to when it comes to highest fidelity applications, then these more kind of solid spherical arrays, they have been shown to be a little bit better. But yeah, there's more to come. I mean, this is actively researched by many people around the world in academia and in the industry. So it might be possible to eventually just throw in a bunch of cell phones in a room and then record the sound field from many different perspectives, but not yet.
Perfect. But that's a way in the future.
Exactly.
Good. Another question from Guilherme was regarding reverb. So he said there are many reverbs that are stereo reverbs, so they do different reverbs for left and right. Are there any special reverbs or spatial reverbs where you could apply reverb in the different directions?
That is also an open question, how to design. So there are very good artificial reverb generators for stereophony like setups, but they don't sound so particularly convincing when they are used in this kind of a virtual reality context. And there is no standard method of creating a synthetic reverberation for these scenarios. So this is also a topic that is actively researched. And there's certainly things coming in the next few years. We're also working on this. One of the PhD students I work with, Thomas Deppisch, he was actually one of the creators of that platform with a panoramic video that you experienced, the host platform. He's working on such things currently, how to measure or how to model and create reverb and control reverberation in these scenarios. But we're not done yet. This is still ongoing.
Okay. And Tulio is asking, how impactful is the shape or size of the end user on the spatial audio experience?
That is a short question with a very long answer.
Yeah, the never-ending discussion, right?
Exactly. It's a never-ending discussion even. So as you can guess, different people have differently shaped heads, and the sizes of the heads vary and the ear distances vary. So it is true that these acoustic cues that the auditory system uses to localize sound, they are very individual. And that particularly when it comes to elevated sound sources. So if I may keep my answer short, as long as all the information that you worry about or you care about is in the horizontal plane, that is all the sound sources are approximately the same height like the ears, it's kind of okay to listen to somebody else's ears. You don't need to necessarily adapt the reproduction to the specific shape of the user's head. Just as a kind of a backup of this or a support of this hypothesis, all the examples that you were listening to, they were actually based on the measurements of the acoustic response of a dummy head of one of those puppets that I showed with microphones and their ears. So they're not even human, they're just human shaped. But you will hopefully confirm that it doesn't sound exactly like real life, but I mean, it's getting there.
It's plausible.
Yeah.
Yeah, we already reached 1 o'clock our time, 6 there. So I'll just go for the last couple of questions here, and then we.
No, we have quite a lot of questions.
I know in YouTube there's a heated discussion in the YouTube. Yeah.
I was thinking about to copy and forward later to Jens, so maybe you guys get the answer. But maybe I read this from Jake Holleboom, also from Southampton. What decoding approach have you found best suited for rendering high-order sonics to binaural? For example,
I think I understand what he targets. So this is now very detailed information. So we're rendering the binaural signals in the spherical harmonic domain. It is also possible to use virtual loudspeakers. We haven't done this extensively yet, but recently we found that maybe it is actually pretty useful to use these virtual loudspeakers instead of doing everything in the spherical harmonic domain. So we're looking into this right now, actually. So I can't give you a definitive answer yet as to what we prefer. So far, we've done everything in the spherical harmonic domain.
But what it seems is that we need to meet again and discuss. An introductory lecture came out to get some really deep discussions, and people are discussing this on YouTube, so we should meet again.
Absolutely, I'm happy to do that.
Will, is there one last question that's before we can wrap it up?
We have some questions from Felipe Martins. Hi, Professor. You have made extensive theoretical work comparing between high-order ambisonics and wave synthesis. Have you also compared and tested both systems hourly? If yes, what are your impressions?
So this is slightly off today's presentation topic. This refers to my previous work on the loudspeaker arrays. In a nutshell, if you want to synthesize a sound field very, very accurately, there's several ways. The two major ones are called wave field synthesis and near field compensated higher order ambisonics. In a nutshell, ambisonics, this kind of ambisonics looks really elegant on paper, but in practice, if you're not located with your head in the exact center of that circular or spherical array, it doesn't sound good. Ambisonics works very well with fewer loudspeakers, and then also there's a larger sweet spot. And with fewer loudspeakers, wave field synthesis cannot be applied anymore. So in a way, these two methods are incompatible, but I think this kind of very, very high resolution ambisonics, it proved not to be applicable in practice. The lower order ambisonics works really well.
I may recommend the guys to see our lectures on EDX platform.
Cool.
You're advertising the whole time in the back, right?
Yes. Sorry, I didn't notice. This poster has been hanging there for a couple of years, so I'm not even noticing this. So yes, there's the course just ended. There's on edX. There's a beginner's acoustics course that I also contribute amongst many other people. All those that you see listed here. So if you're interested, it's fully free, completely free. We're starting again in October. Please be patient. Stay tuned until then.
Okay, great. Guys, I think it's time for us to wrap up. Jens, thank you very much for accepting the invitation and for giving us this lecture. As you see, there is always heated discussion in the end. And from our pre-talk, we need to meet the spatial audio guys once again.
I'm happy to come back sometime in the near future. Thanks everybody for your active participation in this. I'm really, really excited that there's so many people who are interested in these kind of technologies.
Yes, perfect. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Ciao.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.